guys, Jay here. Welcome to Eon's Battle. I want to talk a little bit about Start Collectings, better known as Combat Patrols in 40k 10th edition. Combat Patrols are a really fun way to get a quick injection of a lot of Warhammer 40,000 all in one go. It's a great way to get a bunch of Warhammer kits at a discount, and it seems like the idea of the Combat Patrols is to help you get started on a new faction in Warhammer 40,000. This is a little bit debatable how well this works out, or if Games Workshop is even committed to that thesis. It does seem to be like a pretty much random assortment of miniatures shoved together in a box with the logo of the actual faction on it, but it's okay. In my opinion, what makes a really good Combat Patrol is three things. Number one, it has to actually have value, how much money you save versus buying all of the kits separately. This for Combat Patrol is usually pretty darn good. Some kits are really good, particularly the old Genestealer Cult Combat Patrol, and some of them are not that good. Like, I think the worst value one is technically Grey Knights, although the Grey Knight Combat Patrol is actually pretty darn good. It's a good assortment of units. You kind of get one of each unique thing to that faction, but in actual price to plastic ratio, it's not as good as some of the other Combat Patrols. Value is a really important thing, but something that's maybe a little bit more important than value is the crunch. Are these units that you actually want in your army? It's great to get models at a discount, but there's no point in getting that discount if these are miniatures that are just gonna sit on your shelf and collect dust while you play with other models that you had to buy to actually get some wins in on the tabletop. Crunch is something that changes a lot in Warhammer 40,000, the actual rules of the game. However, I would argue that instead of just ignoring the crunch when assembling a Combat Patrol, why not, since the rules are just numbers and words, why not edit the numbers and words so that the things in the Combat Patrols are good and interesting and unique, and it doesn't really matter what the actual miniatures are. In terms of crunch, some of the Combat Patrols are really good, synergize wonderfully, all of the things in the box make perfect sense to be alongside each other, and some things are not. Boy, one bad example in recent memory of Combat Patrols is the new Astra Militarum Combat Patrol, otherwise known as the Oops All Horsies. 2 squads of Atlan Rough Riders, 1 squad of Khazarkin, and 1 Cadian Command Squad is a really weird box. It's a good box if you want to tech into horses, if you already have an Astra Militarum army. It's like good to get Khazarkin. Khazarkin are an excellent unit and probably gonna be taken in most Imperial Guard lists. And Cadian Command Squad is just kinda there without any Cadians to be attached to, or even with a commander to attach into them. It's just a kind of a weird include. It's a weird mix of units that don't feel like they belong together because they don't. It's a really weird box that if somebody was like, I want to play Imperial Guard, probably what they want to do is they either really want to bring lots and lots of big tanks and sentinels, or they want to tech into lots and lots of troopers. Horses are something a little bit more specific in the Imperial Guard. You either kind of love it or you don't. And this box is just a weird blending and mixture. I think this box fails pretty hard on the crunch. The next important thing for a good Combat Patrol is something that I hear as being very important from a lot of players. I myself don't find it as important, but that is rebuyability. Is it worthwhile to purchase multiple of this box? I don't really like that. I kind of wish it wasn't so important, because I think, you buy one box, super fun. You buy the next box, you already had the experience, but sure, you got some more models, your squads are growing bigger, that's kind of exciting. Third time you buy the box, boring. It's boring to buy it the same thing over and over. The reason that this is so important though is some armies, particularly horde armies like Adeptus Mechanicus and Genestealer Cult, where you have to have a lot of very expensive modern Games Workshop kits, they kind of live and die by being able to get those things at a discount from things like Combat Patrol. Poor Adeptus Mechanicus and Genestealer Cult. It's rough right now. I think for most factions, the starter box should be a lovely rock upon which to set your Warhammer house. And for some factions, that rock is buying 2 or 3 copies of the Combat Patrol, but in general, I wish that it was just You buy the box, you've got the linchpin, you've got the cornerstone of your force, and now it's all gravy. You just buy whatever kits are exciting to you, and they all tack on nicely to what came in that Combat Patrol. In my opinion, some of the very best Combat Patrols out there right now, Combat Patrol Space Wolves. This one is probably gonna throw a lot of people through a loop, but I think this is a really, really good box, particularly if you are a Space Wolves player, because it comes with Lieutenant in Space Wolfie Space Marine armor. This is the only way to get that particular miniature. It's a really, really good miniature, but I think it's a really good box. The Space Wolf Combat Patrol comes with 10 intercessors, 5 Reavers. Reavers are a very interesting unit that recently got a big buff in that their combat knives are now AP-1. They have some interesting things like grappling hooks, so they can ignore vertical movements to their movement. They can be taken as the Hounds of Mordecai if you are playing Space Wolves, and they're a Phobos unit, and that pairs really nicely with the Invictor Tactical Warsuit. This Warsuit has an ability where if a Phobos unit gets shot at nearby, it can then make a shooting attack in the opponent's turn as if it was its shooting phase. This is an incredibly powerful out-of-action shooting ability, essentially doubling the firepower of this unit, and it makes your opponent make a really, really interesting choice, because when there is a rule like this, where something happens because your opponent did something, you should let them know. You shouldn't just spring it on them after the fact. But I think it's also more powerful to tease your opponent with it. Oh, you can shoot at my Reavers right there. You know, you want to shoot at them, but then my Invictor Warsuit gets to shoot at you. And so now they have to decide, well, do I shoot at the thing that I want to shoot at, but then take the heat, or do I shoot at the Invictor Tactical Warsuit and deny him the free shooting, but I don't really want to shoot the Tactical Warsuit? It's a really interesting little bit of play that is facilitated really nicely by the contents of this box. You got your regular Intercessor Space Marines. You could take them in 2 squads of 5, 85 points or 90 points in game. Nice for holding objectives. They've got sticky. Just overall, a really, really solid box. Another box that I would say is the gold standard of Combat Patrols is Combat Patrol Death Guard, sometimes memed on as the Oops All Poxwalkers box. And to be fair, it is 30 Poxwalkers, but that's actually kinda perfect. Who wants to buy a box of 10 Poxwalkers? Who walks into a hobby store and is excited about making that purchase? But with the Combat Patrol, you get a little bit of a discount. You get all the Poxwalkers you will ever need unless you're running a zombie army. And it works really, really well with the other things that come in the box. You got 7 Plague Marines. 7 is kind of an interesting number. It means that you're denying your opponent 1 for shooting with blast weapons. And it comes with the Biologist Putrefier, a wonderful little attachment character for the Death Guard that gives you free grenade strats. Once again, extra shooting is just extra powerful, particularly in low points games like Combat Patrol. And so just getting to chuck extra grenades is a really, really powerful ability. You can either run them solo, have them puppy guard the 10-man squad of Poxwalkers, or have them attached to the 7-man Plague Marine unit. Just overall, really, really solid. And then it comes with the man, the myth, the legend, the Lord of Flies, Typhus. Oh, Typhus is an auto-include A++ tier unit for the Death Guard, and he synergizes really, really well with Poxwalkers. He can attach to Poxwalkers, and what they do for him is their 10 extra wounds, or 20 extra wounds with a 5-up feel no pain. Good luck chewing through all those Poxwalkers to get to Typhus. And Typhus can bring Poxwalkers back to life with his shooting attack. When he shoots his gun and kills stuff, he can resurrect Poxwalkers. So as you're trying to get rid of Typhus, he's bringing back his zombies. I think that this box, if you play with just this box, you're gonna have a ton of fun. And you got your Plague Marines with the Biologist Putrefier, you got your big Typhus brick, you got 10 more little zombies for running around or holding the backfield objective. This is a top tier box, and I bet it happened completely by accident. Because I don't think Games Workshop thinks about the rules at all when they're building Combat Patrols, but they really should. I mean, right, they're kind of stuck with what they've got, because a lot of these boxes were made in 9th edition, although they're getting refreshed in 10th edition. And it doesn't seem like they're putting any more thought or effort into these 10th edition refreshes. And you could say, well, if the rules are gonna change, then why bother thinking about it at all? We'll just put models in a box and people can choose to buy it or not. but they could all be as much fun as the Death Guard box. They could all be basically a perfect starting point from which to add to your army. All you have to do is type and write some more rules and lore and stuff to go along with these units. Or just do a better job coming up with what things actually go in the boxes. Combat Patrol boxes are a little bit of a hit or miss, and there is a spearhead in the room. Age of Sigmar spearhead is essentially the exact same thing as Combat Patrol, but is actually really, really good. Now, to be fair, I don't know that much about Age of Sigmar proper because I have only played one game of it ever, but I have played so much Spearhead. I have played with almost every single Spearhead, with or against, and it's a really, really good game. I don't know exactly how well the Spearheads compare to the full-fat Age of Sigmar counterparts, but it doesn't matter because Spearhead is its own game. And it works really, really well. It has its own board, its own objectives, its own primary and secondary mission objectives. It has its own different ways to buff your armies. It has your own enhancements to select and your own army abilities to select. It works so well, and Games Workshop is actively updating it and working on it to keep it fair and balanced. When a new Age of Sigmar Spearhead comes out, it doesn't replace the previous Spearhead, and so both are fully usable and purchasable from Games Workshop, which is really, really nice because then you have multiple different ways of how you want to tech your Age of Sigmar army into. It's so good. Now, I think part of the reason why it's so good is because it's Age of Sigmar, and Age of Sigmar is a fighting game, and the most important part of the game, the fighting, that phase, even though the game is I go, you go, that particular phase is alternating activation. And so it's pretty fair and balanced, where 40K is strict I go, you go, shooting heavy. And shooting, especially in low points games, can be really, really oppressive. And so I bet it would be hard, but probably not impossible, to make Combat Patrol as good as Spearhead. Probably not gonna do it for 10th edition because the edition's already more than halfway over, but here's hoping for 11th edition that Games Workshop makes a really, really good Combat Patrol, because there's a bunch of 40K armies that I don't really care to make a full 40K army of, but I would put together a Combat Patrol, especially if I knew I was gonna have fun with it on the tabletop. I could dip my toe into a little bit of Custodes, maybe try out some Sisters of Battle. Maybe if there was different Combat Patrols, I mean, like if there was a Combat Patrol built around the Beast Snagga Boys, maybe I would finally start to put some of those kits together. But instead, there's just proper Warhammer 40,000 and the horrible game mode that is Combat Patrol. I played in a Combat Patrol tournament and it was so bad. Just the busted armies just automatically win. There's no, I don't know, there's no way to save Combat Patrol as it is right this second. Taking a little peek at a Combat Patrol that I think is just okay. Good old-fashioned Necron Combat Patrol. You get the Doomstalker, big scary guy. This is actually the Combat Patrol that I took to that Combat Patrol tournament, and it played fine. Everything in my army just got wiped out every single game except the Doomstalker because it's basically overpowered and way too big of a unit to be in Combat Patrol. But you got the Doomstalker, and then you got the Necron Overlord, 10 warriors, 3 scarabs because they come with the warriors, and then you get one squad of 3 Skorpek destroyers. This is a random mixture of units that don't really synergize well. The Overlord can attach to the 10 warrior brick, so that is something that you could actually do, but there's no real point to make it it's just a bunch of Necrons. If you collect your Necron army, chances are those particular units are not gonna stay in your list forever. What I think would be an excellent Necron Combat Patrol is a couple squads of Necron Immortals. Necron Immortals are a battle line unit for the Necrons. They're a little bit better than warriors. They have much better guns. An interesting thing about them is that they actually have weapon options, and so you can go with the Tesla or the Gauss cannons for them to be holding. And this kind of starts you on your Necron journey of finding out what kind of a Necron player you are. If you like Tesla, you don't care about, you just wanna see the numbers go up because they have sustained hits too on their Tesla coil guns. You're just shooting lightning and you're hoping for those 6s so that you explode into so many number of hits. Or are you a more cold and calculating Necron player where you want the Gauss and so you want those lethal hits on 6s? And you want that extra AP of the AP -1. You know, these are two different paths that you can take on your Necron journey. And I think that Combat Patrol is the perfect way to start people making those Necron-y decisions. Then instead of the Overlord, I would actually go with the Plasmancer, a really, really good Cryptek character that benefits greatly the Immortals. The Plasmancer Cryptek gives you successful crits to hit on 5s and 6s, which pair really nicely with the lethal hits or the sustained hits too on the Tesla guns. Just a really, really nice, solid little foundation for your Necrons to build on. Then maybe you do include the Scorpex, and I would include the Scorpec Lord to go along with them, so that you actually have a proper little melee brick that, if you can actually get it to things, is really, really good at blending even some medium toughness vehicles and any kind of infantry in the game. I think like building in those little synergies and those little like situations, those little squads is a much better way than just grabbing random units like, let's just make something up. 2 squads of Horsies, a command squad, and Kazarkin. You know, things that you would never walk into the Warhammer store and make that purchase of those 4 boxes of things. But there they are, all shoved together in one Combat Patrol. Overall, I think Combat Patrol is a wonderful opportunity that Games Workshop is kind of just leaving out to dry. You can sometimes save some money if what comes in the box aligns with the things that you're interested in purchasing anyway. I would definitely try to avoid Combat Patrol if you're not super hot on everything that comes in the box, because then in a weird way, or not even in a weird way, just mathematically, you're wasting money if you don't care about 1 or 2 of the units that come in the box. Sometimes Combat Patrols can just be a little bit disappointing. But you know what never disappoints? That's right, EonsOfBattle.com. EonsOfBattle.com is the place to find our merch like the Nick and Jay dice, and this is the best way to support us doing what we do with a membership. Each month, members get 1 credit that they can use on our new monthly terrain packs or any previous pack we have ever made. For the month of March, we are completing the Fall Battlefield series with Battlefield Support, a set of terrain focused around filling in a war zone with all the infrastructure necessary for a proper battlefield. This set includes gothically bedazzled tank traps for protection, modular bridges for creating hills and ramps, blown out shell craters for infantry to take cover in, armored carrier buses for transporting weapons and ammunition to and from the front lines, and pallets of all the supplies a growing campaign needs. In addition to the STLs, we have a selection of these pieces available physically from EonsOfBattle.com printed for you. This pack of terrain perfectly complements the fall buildings and the fall guns and is the perfect way to add those finishing touches to make a battlefield look real. Overall, in my opinion, Combat Patrol, well, the game mode, but overall Combat Patrols in general, they get like a passing grade from me. Although I should go get a move on and buy the Death Guard Combat Patrol because I think their codex is coming out soon and I want to get it before it goes away. Thanks for watching.